Welcome in, I'm Artris, and in this video we're going to be going over arguably one of the more complicated leaders to come from the One Piece card game in quite some time, and that is Green Yellow Law from OP10. This leader reads, Dawn ×1, activate main once per turn. If the total cost of your characters is 5 or more, you can return one of your characters to the hand. Reveal the top of your life, and if that card is a Supernova type character card with a cost of 5 or less, you can play it. The reason that this leader is rather complicated is because there are many different lines in which you can actually use your leader ability, and you have to also balance one, your life, and then two, your board state. So those two things on top of having a very sound fundamental game make this leader a little bit more complicated, and I wouldn't recommend it for a beginner to the game. However, if you do want to put some time into it, it will be rather rewarding. This leader is more than likely going to be a great leader to bring to a local event because I think that a lot of people aren't going to be anticipating this leader to be played, at least in a heavy or competitive capacity. I do think that this leader has potential to be a strong leader because it has a very high ceiling, but of course the floor is very high as well to get into this deck. But once you do learn what you can do and try to make your ins and outs a little bit better and optimal, I think this leader is very strong. But before we go over the deck list, if you're new to the channel, please make sure to drop a sub and also tap the like button if you enjoy the video. It helps out the channel so much. I cannot thank you guys enough for the support. Additionally, if you'd like to talk about the One Piece card game outside of the YouTube comments, please make sure to join the Discord. The link for that is in the description below. So starting off with this leader, we are running 4 of the Cavendish from EBO1. So off the bat, obviously you can tell this deck's going to be a little bit expensive because this card has shot up in price over time. This card is a 5-cost, 6,000 power body that says on play when attacking. If your leader has the Supernova type and there are no other Cavendish on the field, set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active. Very efficient here. Just make sure that you don't have 2 of them on the field, otherwise the ability doesn't proc, and then it's played with your leader ability, or you can just hard cast it and gain the 2 Dawn back. We're running 4 of the Blocker Law from OP01, classic green blocker here that says on play you may return one of your characters to your hand, play 1 character card with the cost of 3 or less from your hand. Ideally, you have this in your life, you can then use your leader ability to bounce something back to your hand, play this off the top of your life, then use the Law ability to bounce something back to your hand, and then play, ideally maybe the Searcher that you bounce back to your hand to bring this out with. There's a lot of complicated ways to do some things here, but the combo potential is really what makes this card strong. Then I'm running 2 of the 8-cost Captain Kidd, a great stall card here. If you're unfamiliar, it's a Dawn ×1 on the opponent's turn. If this character is rested, your opponent cannot attack anything other than characters named Eustace Captain Kidd, so they can't attack your leader. They can only attack this card if it's rested, and the activate main once per turn is you may rest this character, play 1 character card with the cost of 3 or less from your hand. If you've been watching me for a while, you probably realize that I tend to like control style decks, and I think that Kidd leans more into a control aspect. The way that you play with Kidd is you stall the game out against like other aggro decks, and then you slowly win the war of attrition from there. There are variants that aren't running Kidd at all, and there's variants that are running a new yellow Zoro rusher that I think lend itself to make this deck more aggressive. I've opted to not include that, but instead put the Kidd in instead because I think Kidd just is a strong card against a lot of decks, especially if you're going against Blue Doflamingo. This card will likely win you the game more times than not. So that's why I'm including it at 2 of. If I see it, I'm going to be playing it. I'm going to hold on to it. It's a great card, and you can build up a board really wide, and the Kidd will be sitting behind a lot of blockers, and you should feel rather protected overall. Next, we're running 3 of the 5-cost Jewelry Bonnie. This is a 5-cost, 6,000 power. On play, up to 1 of your opponent's rested characters or Dawn do not become active during their next refresh phase. This card is a lot better than I anticipated in this deck. There's a lot of strong ways that you can play this. Not only can you rest characters, but the more important thing here is being able to rest Dawn, so that if your opponent has a strong 10 Dawn turn, or if they're a deck that is known to play a certain curve, for instance on Usopp, if they're on 7, you can stop them from doing their 7 Dawn Rebecca play the turn before if you play out the Bonnie and stun one of their Dawns. So there's plenty of different ways to use this, so I like the flexibility there. Otherwise, this is just a really good stun a really strong character on the opponent's side of the field. Next, I'm running 2 of the 5-cost Monkey D. Luffy that says if you have 3 or more characters, your cost 3 or lower characters other than Monkey D. Luffy cannot be KO'd by your opponent's effects. This is mostly going to be in here for a couple of decks that you're going to be going against. 1 Blackbeard and then 2 Lucci. Both of those decks might show some prevalence in the OP10 meta, and the fact that you can protect your board with this card is very important in those matchups because this deck is supposed to be building a board so that you can use your leader ability rather efficiently. Of course, where this differs than maybe a red-green law is red-green law needs to have 5 characters on board, whereas the green-yellow law only needs to have 5 cost or more total, so that's pretty easy to hit. So this Luffy isn't as necessary, which is why I'm running it at 2. It's a 1k counter, so might as well include it in the deck in my opinion, but I feel like this is a pretty strong card. You can play it off of life. It's a supernova, so it hits the leader effect. So overall, it hits everything I'm wanting it to. I might cut this for some other cards instead, maybe an additional Bonnie, but I think this is a pretty good start and a good card for certain matchups. Now, speaking of a card that's actually really good for your black matchups is Tashigi. So this might actually be a little bit better than the Luffy we just talked about. And although this isn't a supernova, I feel like it's still worth including in this deck because of the effect is just so powerful for green. When one of your green characters other than Tashigi would be removed from play due to your opponent's effects, whether that's bottom decking or KOing or trashing, you may instead rest this character. This prevents any kind of removal from your opponent's side of the field, which is very nice here. Of course, it only protects green, but a lot of your characters are green here. And at the cost of resting it, that's fine. Especially if you're hiding behind like an 8-cost Captain Kidd, your opponent can't do anything about it. And at worst, this thing is a 2K, so one of the stronger green cards to come from a set in quite some time. Next, we're running 4 of the Bonnie Searcher from Starter Deck 2, way back when. It says activate main, pay 1 Dawn, you may rest this card, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and reveal up to 1 Supernova type card added to your hand. Great way to at least get the game going. A very strong play to be had on your 2 Dawn turn so that your opponent isn't attacking your life and instead is attacking into this card. So overall, that's the reason why we have it. You wouldn't want to run it at less than 4. Next, I'm running 3 of the Restand Law from Starter Deck 2. This is an on-play setup to one of your Supernova or Heart Pirates type rested characters at the cost of 5 or less as active. If you've played Red-Green Law, then you understand that this card is a great way to close out games against a lot of decks. Also, this card is a great way to take a more aggressive approach if you'd so choose to. You can swing with your Law blockers and then restand them with this card and building a board at the same time. At worst, it's a 1K counter. I really like this card. I know that some people have opted to not include it in their deck list. However, I do think that it needs to be in here, at least a 1 of, but because I want to see it more often and then have that potential to be able to go for game with a double attack, I feel like this is a pretty strong card to include. Next, we're running 2 Caramel. This is a card that we don't see played very often in many decks, if any at all. And it actually is very useful in this deck because you're building up your board with this. It's a 2 cost, so you can hit your 5 stipulation a little bit earlier, or at least quicker. And the thing here is that it's on play your turn, draw 1 card, so that's very important because it replaces itself if you don't have a searcher like your Bonnie or your Monkey D. Luffy yellow searcher, that you can actually play this down instead and then draw a card. Like I said, it replaces itself, so you can't ask for more than that. The trigger is also very interesting that you can play this off of your life, then KO up to one of your opponent's cost 2 or less characters. There's plenty of times where I've been able to pop like a Rosinante blocker or an opponent's searcher or whatever it may be. This card actually has really good utility both ways, so I really like it, but you don't want to include it too often because you don't want to see it later in the game. You're more than happy seeing this early game, but later you're just going to pitch it for the counter. So for that reason, it's only at a 2 of. Then a new card from OP10, we're looking at a beige 2K counter, but this one is actually more balanced than the one that we're all familiar with here. It says on play, you may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life cards to your hand. Add up to 1 character with the type Supernova from your hand to the top of your life cards face up. This card is going to be used more often than not to be able to get your leader ability to proc so that you can stack something at the top of your life, pull this card back to your hand with your leader ability, and then play whatever you put at the top of your life. Next, we're running 4 Jewelry Bonnie. Very similar to the beige 2K counter. This will allow you to add 1 card from your top or bottom of your life to your hand. Then you can place 1 Supernova character with the cost of 5 from your hand to the top of your life cards face up. So this will allow you to be able to use your leader ability and play that card you just put into your life. And this is a blocker, which is great because it can be brought out with the Law blocker, which we talked about earlier, because it's a 3 cost. You can also play this with the Kidd, use this ability, and then stack your life if you so choose. Next, another new card from OP10 is Scratchman Apu. This is a 1 cost, 1000 power body, 1K counter, but here's the thing. If you have a yellow Supernova character other than Scratchman Apu, this character gains blocker. So we're now starting to see not necessarily power creep in that sense of the word, but in set 1, or I guess the starter decks, we saw a chopper blocker that is a 1 cost, 1000 power body, no counter, and it's just a blocker. This is a conditional blocker with the same stat lines, but it also has a 1K counter on it. So I really like this card because of the fact that it is very situational, but it is flexible in what you can use it for. It's not dead in hand ever, and you can put it on the field for a very cheap blocker. And there's plenty of times where you might have like 1 Dawn left over, and this would be that card you can use that Dawn for. I mentioned the Bonnie and Monkey D. Luffy searchers. Well, this is what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned that is the OP10 Monkey D. Luffy on play. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal up to 1 Supernova other than this card, or I guess other than Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy, so it cannot grab the green Luffy we talked about earlier, and then you add it to your hand and then place the rest of the cards on the bottom of your deck in any order. So your typical searcher here, this is a great card to be able to bounce back to your hand to be able to use your leader ability. You can also use this to play out. You can also have Law, bounce this back to your hand, and then play it back out with Law. So once again, a couple of different options here that you can use this for, but ultimately you're using it to find your key pieces in the deck. Then yet again, another new card from OP10. As you can see, a lot of yellow support here. We see an X-Drake 2K counter. This is actually a very important card for the deck because it's an activate main. You may rest this character. If the number of your life cards is less than or equal to your number of your opponent's life cards, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. Oftentimes, you're going to be lower life than your opponent, so this card will be able to use the ability quite often, and then you can put it back to your hand with your leader ability, swing into whatever you rested, or just swing past whatever you rested. Plenty of applications here. Ultimately, the flexibility is what makes this card very strong. And then finally, we have a new secret rare from OP10, the 7-cost Law that says on play, reveal a supernova type character card from your hand and add it to the top of your life face down. Then if your leader has the supernova's type, give up to 1 rested Dawn to your leader. So this will allow you to heal. Then you put the Dawn on your leader. Your leader then can use the leader ability because you're at 5 cost or higher on the field. You pull something back. You can also pull this card back if you want and just continuously heal. If that's the case, you don't have to also use your leader ability when you're pulling things back. So put something in your life so you're healing, and then you can pull a card back and you don't have to play what you put on top of your life. It can stay there and you can actually just gain life from that point. So that's actually a really nice way to use this leader and this card in tandem with each other. There's a plenty of different other combos you can use as well. But the more common one, obviously, is going to be able to put something that you were wanting to play on top of your life, pull back a card from your field, probably not this one, but any one that you want, and then play out what you just put into your life. So that's going to be the most common combo here. But more importantly, this card will help you sustain yourself if you need to keep yourself in the game a little bit longer. So yeah, I feel like this is probably a leader that's a little bit slept on as far as power level. I don't think a lot of people are really looking at this leader for OP10. I think a lot of people are considering, obviously, Doffy and Blackbeard, and who knows, we're going to get a ban pretty soon, so, or at least a ban announcement of what's coming up to be banned. So there could be something that makes this leader a little bit stronger in the future. I do agree that this leader is not necessarily like an A-tier leader. It's, for me, more of a rogue deck that probably needs a little bit of a good pilot for it to be at least a top-tier deck. But in the meantime, let's take it in the sim and see how it does. All right, full transparency, I have not had the time to really master this deck, so I'm just going to rely on my fundamentals here to hopefully pull me through a Doflamingo matchup, and of course, it's the first matchup we go against, the best deck in the format. I do think that this hand is rather keepable because we have the 8-cost Kid, which is going to be a nuisance for Doflamingo, but as far as keeping our life totals healthy against a board that goes really wide, and considering my deck doesn't have any removal in it other than swinging into characters, we could be in some trouble here. So I will say that there's probably people that might pilot this a little bit better or differently, but we'll take it with a grain of salt and see what we can do here. We are able to at least find another 7-cost Law to be able to sustain ourselves. I think that's most important, is to be able to sustain ourselves through these 7-cost Laws. Whether we're able to play a body off of it, that's up to the moment, but we'll see what we can do here. We're just going to have to take a fat 8 to start off with. The teach into a Boa is rather unfortunate, but at least it's not a teach into a Jinbei Boa. That would be even worse. So we'll take the 8 here. And I think we just have to swing a big fat 9 right into the Hancock and just pass the turn with 8 cards in hand. Very, very puddingable. And then they could use their leader ability with the teach. So let's just hope that they don't have the pudding here. But the next turn, if we're able to at least untap with our hand, I think we should be able to establish like a Cavendish and be okay. Yeah. A Moria into grabbing the Boa Hancock that I just spent my entire turn getting rid of. Love to see it. Love it. Amazing. This deck is going to be probably hit very soon. So they're going to play the Hancock back out here. That's fine. They opt to not swing or put the rested Dawn under their leader, so I'm going to take advantage of that. This turn, I feel like we can just play out the blocker Law, bounce the Luffy back to hand, and then see what we can get off the top. That does obviously mean that they could pudding us again if they have it, but that's not going to be their strongest play. We'll go ahead and grab the 2K here and then swing 6 into 6. This will likely be countered out, but at least we're getting cards out of their hand. Now, normally, I feel like the right way to play green-yellow Law is to be very aggressive. You might want to try to race Doflamingo, although to be fair, Doflamingo is probably one of the hardest decks to race, so the way that I'm going to approach this matchup is just take it turn by turn very slowly and see if there's any way that we can reduce their hand size and their board at the same time. So they unfortunately have a Jozu to answer this blocker law. Really, really annoying here. They swing 5, and go ahead and counter out of this one. And if they swing 6, I feel like we could just counter out of this one again. Why not? And then they play a Sengoku. I feel like the best play they could have made there was, instead of playing a Sengoku, just use their Teach to cheat something out. But they might not have anything that's worth cheating out either. So who knows? I don't know what's in their hand. Clearly, they are playing to the best of their ability, I suppose. They're grabbing a Weevil. Okay, that's fine. Here, we're going to go ahead and just play out this Law to heal up. And I think what we can do is play out this... I guess I was just trying to think. I can't really bounce the Luffy back, right? Actually, yes, I can. So I can bounce the Luffy back, and we're not going to be able to really do anything with it, but we can play the Luffy again. So it's kind of like we were able to bounce it, I guess. Not the best turn there because we didn't have a really wide board to be able to use the blocker law efficiently. We'll swing 6 into Moria. They counter out. They are keeping their units alive, as they should. But I think it's fine because what we can end up potentially doing this next turn is going down to 0. I know that sounds weird against a Doflamingo deck, but if we can stabilize around an 8-cost kid at 0, I think that's fine. I think that's actually fine. They'd have to use a Jambay to get past what's on the field, and that is requiring too much for them. And maybe we'll get lucky and find a cheap blocker along the way so that we can hide behind the 5-cost blocker law and then another blocker as well. We'll see, though. We'll see what they have. I think that this 7-cost law is actually really great into Doffy because Doffy's not going to really counter out of 9k attacks coming their way. Yeah, they're pushing really hard here. Okay, so they're swinging 7 with the Moria off the bat. I fully expect more 7s to be coming my way. Yeah. We'll go ahead and block and give them a 2k. And if they want to swing into the blocker law, be my guest. That's fine with me. But more likely than not, they're going to just swing into life. 7, yeah, we'll take it. Got a 2k, that's pretty nice here. And if they're going to swing life here, I think that it's fine to just go ahead and take it and then sit behind the 8-cost kid. I think that's fine. They're going super wide here. Oh my gosh. This could be where, they're putting something at the top, swinging 8. Yeah, 8 into life, and replacing the Moria with the Moria. Makes sense. Grabbing a 2k back. Yep. Okay, well, we top decked a Bonnie. That's really good for us here. I am actually super happy to see that. We'll go ahead and go 6 into 5. We know that they have a Crocodile. It's just asking for that Crocodile there, seeing if they give it to us. Will they give it to us? Will they give us this Moria, or will they give us the Crocodile? I actually hope that they give us the Moria. Obviously, I don't want them to have something on the field, but if they're gonna give us a 2k, I'm gonna go ahead and swing this Law. This might seem crazy. It might seem like a psycho play to this Doffy, but trust me, there's a reason for it. Because I have another blocker. Let's go. They can always just bounce this one, of course, with the bounce law. But we have a fair amount of 2ks in hand, and if they bounce this blocker back to my hand, then that means an additional 1k here. But I am holding on for dear life right now. I'm really scared. I feel like we're in probably the worst position possible with dwindling resources. They're at 5 life. They've built up this huge board. We were able to take it back slightly, but we're not in a good position at all. And this is just the case of dealing with Doflamingo, is that they have like this massive board advantage. They have a huge hand size. There's not really a way to like quell their aggression for a lot of decks out there unless you have removal built in. Here, I think it's fine to just go ahead and give a 2 and a 1 so we can sit behind the Bonnie, because I don't know what other attacks are going to be coming my way. Of course, this does suck having to drop cards here, because that means we're not able to really efficiently draw going forward, but it is what it is. Here, they might go like 9-9. Oh, they just go 8, and that's an easy 1k here. And if they go 10 here, then we can just block it with the Bonnie. And then hopefully we can just take the board back. They just go 9. I think I'm just going to go ahead and just block here. Yeah, and they had a Weevil off the top. Really good for them, being able to draw another card off the top there. Here, I feel like we could just go and play out the Law. Heal with this this blocker law. I don't know if I want to stay at 1 life or if I want to actually play out another blocker. I feel like I might just want to play out another blocker here. Who knows? We'll go 9 into 7. They're actually considering countering out of this, which is psycho behavior on their part. Actually, it's not psycho behavior. It's pretty considered to be normal here. They're going to want to keep this Jozu alive because it's their highest attacker. But to me, I think it's a psycho behavior because I would just let this thing go. But whatever. Maybe they're trying to keep the Jozu alive so that it can soak up another attack from the 7-cost law, and then they would at least have the Weevils alive, ready to swing into me. But I don't know. I don't feel like that's the optimal play here, so we'll see. But if we do play out the blocker law off of life, yeah, they're going to counter out. That's fine. We'll go 7 or 9 into 7 again. They let it go. As expected, we'll go 7 into 6. This one could be easily countered out, and they just let it go. That's fine here. I'm going to go at 7 into 6 again, seeing as they let that one go. And once again, this is very, to them, probably like, what is this guy doing? But there's a reason for it all. We'll go ahead and bounce this bounce law, and then I think we could just bounce the blocker law again. I keep saying bounce law, but it's blocker law. And then we can play out the searcher to at least get a card back in hand. And this card will at least be able to gain us a hand size over time if we are grinding them out, which we've taken the board back. By turn 7, we have a full board sitting behind a kid. We have some counter in hand. We have a blocker law on the field. So we're not in the worst of positions here. It could be better, but we've actually been able to turn this game slightly around. We're still in an uphill battle here. This Doffy's sitting at 5 life. I mean, we're asking for a miracle to come back from this one. But yeah, why does this have to be one of the first matches that I go up against with minimal practice on this deck? Okay, so Jinbei into Moria into grabbing the Hancock, which is fine. They're getting some protection here, and the Hancock will be able to let them use their leader ability. This is insane. Jinbei, Moria, Hancock, that is the ideal 10 Dawn turn here. So yeah, I guess, well, they're just swinging 7 into Kid. It's not going to do anything. That's fine for us. Jinbei into something else. Oh my gosh. Jinbei into Weevil. That is the perfect 10 Dawn turn, although they are 2 cards in hand, so I guess it doesn't matter too much here. We'll go 5 into 5. This is where it gets really scary. There is a turn. There is a way we can actually just heal up here. We could go swing this law, the 7-cost law, and then use our leader ability. We probably should have put 1 Dawn underneath, but it is what it is. We can bounce the law back to hand. But first we'll use the Luffy to search out any 2Ks. We don't find anything, so it just replaces itself, basically. Let's see if we can find another 2K. I think that's important to try to find. Yet again, we don't find it, but we do find a Bonnie blocker. That's fine here. And we probably could have played this a little bit differently. And the reason why I think we could have played it a little bit differently here is there's a world where we could have bounced the 7-cost law back to our hand and then heal off of it after an attack, but it is what it is. We can just establish another law here. So we'll bounce the Bonnie back to hand. We'll play out the... Well, we're not going to be able to play anything off of life, but that's fine. We'll be able to play the blocker law to play out or bounce the 7-cost back to hand and then play out the Bonnie blocker. So now we have these 3 blockers here sitting behind a kid with 2-2-1-1 and then another way to heal the next turn. It's going to be very difficult for them to crack through this. It seems a little bit counterintuitive to bounce your top end back to hand, but when it has such a great on play that will keep you in the game, you might as well do it, right? And we could have played it differently that turn, but I think establishing these 3 blockers is really good, or having these 3 blockers established on the field is really good. 8 into 8 will counter out easily, and then we'll just see what else they can do here. They have 4 attacks and we have 3 blockers, so if this next attack... Yeah, I think they just gave up there because of the fact that there was nothing really they could do. Their hand was pretty stacked after that too. So we got really lucky that we were able to find the cards we had. The 1 8-cost kid definitely carried this game. Against Red Purple Luffy, I just want to find some 6,000 power bodies, but that's way too many. Let's just hard mulligan that so we have some early plays at least. Luckily, we were able to get into this Luffy searcher, a couple of them, so we have a couple of plays for the first couple turns. Grabbing the 7-cost because the 7-cost is going to be useful for us to, 1, use our leader ability, but also stay alive longer because usually Red Purple Luffy likes to play really aggressive and swing at life. Here we can grab a couple of options. Kid's not bad. Another 7 cost isn't bad. But I think having a counter with the Bonnie is fine as well. So let's go ahead and just grab that. The reason I didn't grab a Kid here is because sometimes if you just rest a Kid and they play out a Shanks, it's really hard to defend it. And so I don't really think that that's a great stall tactic against Red Purple Luffy. I feel like just going very wide is probably the better option here. We are going to take this one, and actually X-Drake is a pretty good card here. I don't want to play down a 6k body and have the Bond Clay be a 6k swing into face. So instead, let's go ahead and play this X-Drake down. Rest the X-Drake, rest the Bond Clay, swing the Luffy into it, and then I think we can probably swing 6 into lead and establish a Bonnie. We could also swing 7 into lead, bounce one of the cards back to hand, but I think it's probably fine to leave these rested. I'm not too concerned if they decide to swing Nami into the Luffy, and if they decide to swing their leader into the X-Drake, that's even better for me. So they're going to go ahead and grab the 9-cost Luffy, and knowing that they have that coming up, this actually might be a really good turn to play out the 7-cost Law, put a Bonnie into life, and then stun a Dawn so that they won't be able to play out the 9-cost Luffy on curve. Because they're going to be going to 8 Dawn the following turn, and they'll be able to use their leader ability ramp up to 9, but if we stun one of their Dawns, they won't be able to play a 9-cost. So yeah, I think that's the best option here. We can swing, we can clean up the board a little bit. Obviously swinging the Luffy into the Nami is not really significant, but just doing it to clean the board. We'll go ahead and swing 6 into 6 first. We might have just swung the Luffy into the Nami, but it doesn't really matter. And then we'll bounce the Luffy back to hand. There's also an argument to bounce the X-Drake back to hand, but I think having another searcher for something else later on will be nice. And like I mentioned, we stun the Dawn so that when they do use their leader ability here, well, they play a Dragon, which is actually probably the best option for them anyway. So we'll go ahead and I guess we'll just take this. Yikes. Okay, well, I guess we'll just take that one as well. That is rather unfortunate, but maybe we can find a 7-cost Law off the top. We do. That was really risky on my part, but it worked out, I suppose. We'll go 6 into 6 here. We're just going to ask for some cards out of hand. We'll play out the Law. Well, I guess we can swing 7 with the Law here, because we'll use the Law to put a card into life, put a Dawn underneath my leader. It has to be a Dawn underneath the leader. So we'll go 6, 7, 9. And I feel like we probably could just bounce the X-Drake back here in a second. It's very risky here, of course, being at 0 life. But we do have a blocker. We have a lot of counter in hand. We could also play out, well, I guess this blocker is probably the best option as well. We're just going to block her up and hope that they don't have a Goldie Roger. If they have a Goldie Roger, which most are only running 1, if that, then they have it. But they are just swinging 9 here, which probably indicates that they don't have it. So let's go ahead and just get the block off for free. It could be a Shanks that they're running as well if they're swinging 9 first, but we'll see what they have. Oh my gosh. Diablo Jambe. I have not seen a Red Purple Law run Diablo Jambe in quite some time. I thought that card was cut from the deck. I did not expect that, but luckily we should have enough counter here. I guess it doesn't really matter because we should be going for game the next turn anyway. Just barely enough here. Yeah, we were able to probably just poke them down for like 8, 8, 8, 10, whatever at that point. They didn't have enough counter in hand to be able to get back. They did have a lot of Shanks, which is very scary, but honestly, Diablo Jambe is probably their best play anyway. So, geez, that was quite intense. The strategy for Belo Betty, I feel like is, well, we don't have to look any further. I was going to say, find 8-cost Kid. We have it. I think 8-cost Kid's going to be our best bet. Cavendish is a pretty strong card here, and since we saw 2 in the top 5, we should just grab one of them, because the fact is that we're probably not going to see another one very soon, at least. A Bonnie's fine, because we can use the Bonnie to search, and they likely will swing into the Bonnie, and I think just grab the blocker Law, because we saw 2 of them. Usually, rule of thumb is if you see 2 cards of the same type in the top 5, just grab it, because you don't know when they'll come back around. So next turn, if the Bonnie is still alive for whatever reason, then we can use the Law to bounce it back to hand, and then, I don't know, play it again if we want. Yeah, they're going to swing into it. They should always swing into this. You don't want the Bonnie to accrue value over the course of a game. And honestly, this is fine for us because we're buying a little bit of time. The reason we're buying time is because we have 1k counter in our hand right now. 2 7-cost, 2 8-cost. So our late game is going to be really good against the Belo Betty. We just have to get there. And they were able to find a Karasu, which I think is the best card for Belo Betty. It minuses 1,000 power to a character or a leader, makes it really difficult for battle math, especially if they're pumping their characters up by 3,000 power with their leader ability. What does this card do? Very insignificant. Okay, cool. That's not really worth my attention, I suppose. I mean, it's a non-play, so that's the reason why. We'll go ahead and swing 5. Risk them having a trigger here. That's always the problem with swinging into Betty. You don't know what you're going to get. To be honest, I feel like we can just go like the blocker law here, bounce the Luffy back to hand, and maybe search for a blocker's fine, a 2K's fine. Any of those are good, but setting up for our kid turn in 2 turns will be very important. I think the next turn we're going to be able to play out the 7-cost law, depending on just how aggressive they go here, of course. Which looks like they're going to be going very aggressive. Usually if they play an Ivankov like this, it means that they're going to be using their leader ability, pumping up what's already on the field, and probably playing out the Karasu, which we just saw, which means it's going to be difficult for us to counter out of a lot of these things because they're going to be swinging potentially like 6, 6, 7, and that's going to be very difficult for us to answer, especially considering we have no 2Ks in hand. We're running 12 2Ks in this deck, and we don't have a single one in our hand here. We'll go ahead and just block and give a 1K and risk them swinging into it. Swinging into me is fine. Where are 2Ks? What? I thought I put some in the deck. What's going on right now? That's strange to see. I think we'll go ahead and just play out the 7-cost here, and there's an argument for Cavendish. There's also an argument for Restand Law, depending on what they do here. So I think we just swing 6 into the Lindbergh first and see what they do. If they counter out of this, then we definitely swing with the blocker law. But then again, we're just going to swing with it anyway because I feel like just play aggressive. Don't be afraid. Bounce the Luffy back to hand. We'll play out the law, restand the blocker, and then have it ready to block the next turn. I want this card. I want the blocker law on the field for sure for this next turn because if we're able to stay alive and not block with the blocker law, then what this means is that we can play out the 8-cost kid, use the ability of the 8-cost kid to bring out the Bonnie blocker, and then we'll hide behind 2 blockers and an 8-cost kid, probably be at 0 life, and then from there we do have the 7-cost law to be able to heal back up if we need to. So we have a little bit of a game plan here. Them aggressively taking their life is something I didn't expect, but it is very scary because now they've cheated out 2 bodies, and we have to worry about the Karasu, the Ivankov, and the Betty. So we'll definitely be going to 0 this turn for sure. We'll be able to answer the board back. I am not entirely sure that'll be possible. So let's see what they do here. If they are pitching their Morley for leader ability, which it appears they are doing so, they could use the Ivankov to bring out a rush unit. Like, I forgot the name of it, but Inazuma. We have to worry about that, but it doesn't look like it, at least for now. We'll take the 8-4. Where are our 2Ks? Oh my gosh, this is insane. Insane what's going on right now. But I guess we might have to actually just block and do 2 1Ks with this Betty. Okay, so they're using the ability to bring out the Karasu. That's fine. We'll go ahead and just give them a Bonnie and I guess Searcher Luffy. I think that's fine. We have the Bonnie. We have the Bonnie Searcher. I'm laughing because we get another counterless card. Insane here. Okay, so our options are we try to go for game, but they have 2 blockers up, or we try to just clear board. I think clearing board might be our best option here, but I'm not too confident that we'll be able to. So we'll see what we can do here. So we got the Karasu off. That's actually insane that we got that. I love to see it. 6 into 5. If they let the Karasu go, they might let this go as well, knowing that we have a lot of bodies left. They don't know how I'm going to swing, so they probably are just letting these go to stay alive. 9 into 5. They'll block. I think they're probably afraid of like maybe a restand law, another one, but we only got the 1 out. And so now we have established the kid, and I don't think they're going to be able to crack through this, even with like pitching a card from hand and using like leader ability to pump up the characters already on the board. It means that they're going to have to swing with the leader and then the 2 characters, or at least play a rush unit and be able to do that and swing into an 8,000 power body behind 2 blockers. I don't think that's going to be possible for Betty here. So we actually, I think, almost checkmated them. It just depends on what they're doing. At least maybe they're trying to calculate the math here. Yeah, so they do have the Inazuma rush unit. Will this be enough? They have to like crack through this, but like I said, I've got 2 blockers, and I feel like this is not going to be good enough for them to be able to crack through. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident. Even though I only have 3k in hand, we should be able to just block the ones that we can't defend, and then they'll likely not have enough Dawn to be able to swing too high above the kid here. So let's see what they do. Opponent is, I think, very deep in the think tank. We're sitting here for a little bit, and they just decided to give up. Okay, so I guess that they probably mathed it out and realized that there was no way for them to get past this. Although I guess they could have done like a koala and minus the kid. But even then, I feel like we probably were going to be able to pull that one out. Yeah, that's really tough for Betty to come back from. Teach is going to be one of our harder matchups because all of our characters, or most of our characters, have on-play effects. And if Teach just uses his leader ability every turn, we're not going to be able to get any value other than playing our searcher off the bat, right? So I think that maybe grabbing this Luffy could be worthwhile. The blocker law is also not bad either, just having a blocker in general. So let's go ahead and just get that. And then this turn, we'll go ahead and play out the Bonnie. Search with it. We can grab a kid. Kid's fine. If they have a 10 cost Teach, it does make this kid obsolete. But if they don't have multiple of them, then maybe there's a chance we can hide behind it. But I'm not too hopeful about this matchup. This matchup is actually really tough. The fact that, like I said, all of our characters, for the most part, have on-play effects is not very good for us because we need all of these on-play effects to have our leader ability. What? They use a finger gun on our Bonnie? Just swing into it. Maybe they didn't have any other plays. I don't know. That seems a little bit crazy to me, but oh well. I guess it worked for them. They got the Bonnie off the field and they got hit into our life. Go ahead, just play out the blocker law. No effect there because, as you saw, they use their leader ability to turn my on plays off, so the on play of law isn't workable. Another finger gun. Okay, so we're just gonna finger gun game here. Okay, that's, I guess, fine. I guess this is fine. They'll swing 7. We'll take it. I'm not gonna counter out of that. We'll go down to 2, and then this is what's really tough is because we have the 7 cost law, but we can't heal off of it. They have nothing but removal spells and then counters in their hand to stay healthy and get all of the board off the field. That's entirely how Teach plays, but sometimes you go against Teaches and they just don't have all of the combo pieces or everything that they need. Sometimes they have like the Burgess and the Kuzans, and those are fine. I don't mind dealing with those, but when they have like finger gun, and then just 2Ks or 1Ks to counter out of everything, usually it's probably a game over at that point. They're going to play out the Kuzan, which Kuzan will trash itself to bring out probably Burgess, if I had to guess. Yeah, Burgess. And then if they swing 8 here, I mean, do we just take it? I think we have to. I think we just have to. I don't know. This is kind of a rough matchup right now. We're sitting at 2 life. Yeah, we have to take this one, unfortunately. I mean, we could have countered out of that one, but the reason I didn't counter out of that is because we do have ways to at least stay alive. We can hide behind an 8 cost kid for a turn. Although, I guess if they do have a counter out of that, okay, cool. They have a 10 cost, and this kid is just obsolete, like I said. I think we just go ahead and then just play out this Apu, because that's the only blocker that we have to protect our kid if they decide to swing into it, which, if they're smart, they won't. They'll just nullify it, so they don't have to worry about swinging into it. They'll just swing into life here. We'll counter out of 1, and then we'll have to block the Burgess attack. Yep, Black Hole. Like I said, they're using it every turn. I think that this is the best way to play Teach against green-yellow law. It hurts. It hurts. It really does. Like, this is arguably probably our worst matchup, and there's not much we can do because we can't heal. We can't use our on-play effects to like stun things with the Bonnie. We can't use the law restand because we don't have a 5 cost. So yeah, we're not looking too good here. We'll go 10 into 8, see if they block. They'll likely block, and that's fine. I think what we could do is use a Bonnie here, grab a blocker law, and I think we just swing 7 into lead. We can't even rest the kid because the kid's ability is nullified for an entire turn, so we can't use it as like a rest, and then have it sit behind it. So yeah, this is why it's rough. It's a rough matchup. We'll go ahead and just put the blocker law and hope for the best. 3 finger pistols, insane. I mean, it's not insane. That's probably considered to be normal there, to see all of everything they need. With no stage, no searchers, it is what it is. Yeah, that was a rough one. We don't really win most of those, to be honest. So it is what it is. You just do the best you can. Enel is going to be a grindy matchup, as to be expected with Enel. I think that the hand we had was fine, but I just kind of wanted to see if I could get anything better, and I think this is probably roughly the same hand we just had. So this is fine. This is fine. We can play an 8-cost kid down. We do have to be aware that they could remove it with things like Katakuri, but we do have a Tashigi 2K counter here, so hopefully we can at least use it to the best of our ability. And I think it's fine to go ahead. We could play an X-Ray. We could also play Caramel. I think Caramel's probably better here. I don't really want to give them anything to swing into. Right, so if we use the X-Drake to rest the Shirahoshi, it doesn't really accomplish much because, like, we're losing a 2K, they're going to swing into it, we get rid of their blocker. We could just use the Caramel to replace itself. And if they decide to Kuzan it this turn, so be it. It is what it is, it's fine. It's not the end of the world here. This next turn, we could... I actually don't want to establish this Bonnie quite yet, but we might not have any other option. And the reason why I don't want to establish it quite yet is because Bonnie is really good against Enel if they are going into their 10 Dawn turn, or I guess even their 9 Dawn turn. Ooh, this is actually really good. Using the Bonnie here to play out the law. I mean, we had the law in life anyway, so it's not really amazing, but we'll go ahead and just swing 6 first. Hope that there's no trigger. If there's a trigger here, then yeah, we kind of get screwed a little bit. Maybe swinging first would have been fine. Always swing first. This is clearly a mistake on my part, but maybe we don't get punished. Who knows? Maybe we don't get punished this time. Never punished. Let's go. Okay, so we're going to return the... We're going to play out the Apu first, rather. And then return the Apu back to hand so that we can play out the Blocker Law. Blocker Law will bounce the Caramel back to hand, and then we're just going to use it to draw another card for free. And then pass the turn after that. I think this next turn we could play out a Cavendish. Okay, so they have a Gadatsu to get rid of the Bonnie. That's good that they didn't have a Nami, and it looks like they're just going to full-on starve us if that's the case. I don't want to put them at 1, because if I put them at 1... Well, I guess it doesn't really matter, right? They're going to be playing Katakuri this next turn. Okay, so we'll go ahead and play out a Cavendish. I'm not going to swing at them. I just want to kind of build a board the best that I can. So let's go ahead and play out an Apu here. There's an argument to have an X-Drake played out as well, but I actually don't think it's really worth doing that. Kind of awkward here. Let's go ahead and just bounce the Caramel back to hand. We do have an X-Drake that we could play out, but I don't think it's worth it. We're going to play the Caramel again just to draw another card. So that's one way that you can actually play this, is like bounce cards back to hand, get more value off of them, build up the hand size. So they're technically, even though they're like starving us, they're not actually starving us because we're building up a hand size over time. This next turn will be really good for us to be able to play out the 8-cost kid, and then we can hide behind a couple of blockers with the Scratchman Apu and also the Blocker Law. They just play Gadatsu to get rid of the Caramel, which I think they should have just gotten rid of the Apu there. We do have an argument to play out the 7-cost Law, which is not actually a bad option here. So we're going to go ahead and play this out. Once again, I'm just trying to build up a wide board if possible. We're going to return the Scratchman Apu back to hand. Play out the Law, and we don't really have anything to bounce back. I'm just trying to cheat out bodies for cheap. We'll go ahead and play out the Apu again, and then the following turn, what we can end up doing is playing this 8-cost kid. There's a world where they do actually play out a Yamato and KO one of our 5 costs. That's rather unfortunate, but if they do that, then we are able to have space for the 8-cost kid. So there is a plus side to that, of course. And if they decide to swing at my life, I will gladly take that. I kind of want to go down to 1. Oh no, they're just going board control with their 5 costs. So they have a Nami. And what is, do they have another Nami? They have another 5 cost possibly. Oh no. Okay, so they're just gonna go 7. Yeah, we'll gladly take these. Yeah, for sure we'll take these. No problem there. Here I'll block and give a 2K, and then they might go 8. They might go like 8 with their leader into the Blocker Law. And we'll just block with the Scratchman Apu. Here, go 9 into 6, and I would just let it go if I was the Enel, but I think that they might not have too much pressure outside of the Gadatsus, although they're probably just baiting here. So they did block with the Shirahoshi, that's fine. We're just trying to get cards out of hand here before we start pushing lethal in a couple of turns, and that's fine. I want to keep my Blocker Laws standing upright. We'll go ahead and play out the kid, play out the Tashigi. Their best bet is to get rid of the Tashigi, of course, so they could go Yamato and pop the Tashigi, which is an annoyance, which means that the kid will be susceptible to Raigo or 8-cost Katakuri. Those 2 options there are really annoying. This is why this Tashigi is really good, is because it makes yellow decks suffer even harder against green. So yeah, they had the Yamato to KO the Tashigi, but we draw into another one. Never punished here. That's amazing to see. We could go ahead and play it out. because if they have anything that KOs, it could protect it by resting, but then it's not protecting the following turn. So I don't know if it's really worth doing that. I think what we can do is actually just kind of push, like pressure really hard, like pressure 7. We'll see. We'll swing 5 first just to see what they do. That's like the best indicator. If they just counter out of here, then I think we just continue to build board, or I guess we don't really have much of a board to build. We already have 4 on the board right now, but yeah, we'll swing 9. Ooh, nice block there. Do we pressure? We might. Let's go 6. Let's swing, or 7 rather. Let's swing 7 into lead and see if they give us a 2 and a 1. If they counter out here, then we don't swing anymore. I don't think we swing anymore, to be quite honest. I don't know. Maybe we push them down to 0. I don't know. We can just bounce the bounce, or I keep saying bounce law. This entire video I've been saying bounce law. The blocker law. We're able to play out a Bonnie off of the top of a life, so we're like kind of unplugging ourselves. We'll then bounce the Bonnie back to hand, so we're getting a card, and then we're able to play out the Tashigi with the law ability, and then we're not going to swing anymore. We're just going to rest the kid and then pass the turn. Here, it does suck because what ends up happening is if they have like an ace, then they can heal back up, go to 2, and that's going to be really annoying for us. Doesn't look like they have it, so that's good for us. I think we just go ahead and counter out, because I don't know what other swings they might have coming our way. They're at 8 Dawn, so this could be a Katakuri to put like the Nami into life. They might also just, they're just dividing it up evenly, or semi-evenly. So 10 into 8. I think we just counter out of this one as well. I'm going to keep the 5-cost Bonnie alive, or in my hand at least, so that I can stun down this Yamato. Potentially take back the board this next turn, and this one's going to be a clear block. That's fine. I actually kind of want to swing the Tashigi, not going to lie. I want to swing 5. I just want, maybe swinging with the leader first is probably the better option, but I don't care. At this point, I'm just going to try to pressure as hard as possible. We're in a pretty good spot. We're in a really good spot, actually. We can also bounce the Tashigi back to hand, too, so I think that's something to keep in mind. So we'll go ahead and swing 5, just another 5. We're trying to get cards out of hand. If they give us another 1k here, then, or any 2ks even more telling, I think we just go for board at this point. So we can go 9 into 6, clear out the Gadatsu. We'll go 9 into the other Gadatsu. And we're at 8 Dawn, so we can bounce. Oh, we actually can't. Oopsies. Oopsies. I missed it. My Dawn. That's fine. We'll bounce the Tashigi back to hand, and then what we'll end up doing is, well, they have 7 costs in life. We'll play out the Bonnie. We'll play out the Luffy first to see if we can get something else nice. Just it replaces itself. We'll let them know that we have a Bonnie coming their way. So we'll go ahead and grab the Bonnie. Play out the Bonnie, freeze the Yamato, and then pass. And this is going to be a really good turn for them to go ahead and play out an ace. They could also just Raigo, but that's not really a good option either, because Raigo doesn't really do much, to be quite honest. I mean, yeah, sure, it gets rid of the kid, but it doesn't heal them, and they're already at a pretty low life and hand total, so it's a grind. Like I said at the beginning of this match, it's going to be a grind, so we're slowly grinding them out. They do have the ace. Here, we're going to go ahead and counter out. Go 2 and a 1. So Tashigi and Bonnie, because we can use the restand law to potentially push game with this, either the Bonnie or this law. We'll go 7. Arguably, swinging 5 is better here, but 7s are usually pretty good as well. Granted, they don't have any like KO effects here. Oh, can't attack. Ooh. Okay. So they took that 1-7 from the Bonnie. We'll swing 9. We can go like 9. Hope that there's no trigger here. I'm kind of like, this is the problem with going against Enel. Sometimes you just get tired. You get fed up of like, you just get fed up of like going through the motions of it. You're just trying to close out the game. Don't ever do this in a tournament. Don't swing like this in an actual tournament. 7. We should just swing 7 first. You want to get cards out of their hand instead. Okay, that's really good for us. We can go 7 again, because that's a clear going to hit. That's fine. And if this is a trigger to stop the Luffy, or like KO the 1-cost Luffy, so be it. If this is, I'm going to go for game. I'm going to risk it for the biscuit. I'm going to go for the game because they've dropped a lot of 2Ks here over the course of the game. And having exactly 2 2Ks is, I think, unlikely. And if we just play out a bounce law, like if we bounce the Luffy back to hand and then play out the restand law, It's the same thing. It's the same thing as Swinging Gate here. And they didn't have it. They had another 2K, but they didn't have it. So yeah, probably a little bit of mis-sequencing and probably wrong play on my part, but I was getting tired of it. As you do against Enel. It is what it is. Okay, so clearly outside of some mechanical misplays on my part, I feel like this leader is actually very viable. It's really fun. That's the most important thing here. I find that this leader has a lot of different levels of play, different ways to play the game. As you could see, there's ways to like bounce characters back to hand and get replayability off of those characters, which there's like so many different combos that I didn't even touch on in this video that I hope that some of you guys out there will take some inspiration and cook with this deck a little bit more and find some things that I didn't find for sure. But that being said, I feel like this leader is one that I will probably keep in my back pocket to just like play a little bit more of here and there to really just like hone in on the actual technicalities of what you can do with this deck. It's very interesting. I think that this leader is probably the most fun to come out of OP10. And I'm saying this from an Usopp stan or like a Rebecca stan. I feel like this leader is actually the most fun. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this leader turned out overall. It does have some issues with, of course, like the balancing life and maybe some people play too aggressively, but this deck is very explosive. It has a way to play aggressive. It has a way to stall. You can pivot your gameplay according to what's going on, and I really like that. Despite it not having any removal, it's really good. It's really fun, and I think somebody out there will do well with it, and I hope that person is you. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll see you all in the next video.